All right, strap yourselves in because this deep dive is going to be a wild one.
Aw, sounds exciting.
It is. We're tackling success today.
Love it.
And we're using this motivational speech by Donald Trump as our guide.
Oh,
It's called one of the greatest speeches ever. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype.
I can imagine.
We're going to break down his advice on making it in business and life and hopefully give you all some food for thought along the way.
Sounds good to me.
Now, just be clear.
Yeah.
We're not wading into politics here. We're purely focused on those raw, sometimes surprising bits of wisdom he drops.
Right, the core messages about success.
Exactly.
It's interesting you say surprising because right off the bat, Trump hits you with this super intense never give up
Oh,
message.
he absolutely does.
He doesn't mess around. He practically tells anyone who's even thinking about quitting to just turn off the video.
No kidding. He's like, if you're a quitter, stop watching right now.
It's brutal.
Yeah, and that aggressive approach, is it really effective?
Good question.
Is it like a kick in the pants that some people need? Or could it totally backfire?
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
On the one hand, that boldness can be electrifying.
Yeah.
It might really resonate with people who crave that straight talking, no excuses kind of motivation. Like
Right.
it just lights a fire under them.
I get that.
But there's a potential dark side too.
Mm.
Imagine someone sticking with a failing business just because they're terrified of being called a quitter.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You could end up digging yourself deeper into a hole.
Absolutely. That makes you think about the difference between perseverance and just plain stubbornness.
For sure.
But here's where it gets kind of interesting.
Okay.
Even Trump admits there's a time and a place for flexibility.
Really?
He says sometimes you don't have to smash through walls, you can just go around them.
Mm.
He's not saying be blindly persistent. It's more like adapt your approach to overcome those obstacles.
Right, so it's not about giving up. It's about being smart about how you pursue your goals. Have you ever had to do that in your own life? Like, adjust your course to get where you wanted to go?
Oh, all the time. Especially in this business.
I bet.
There have been times I was so focused on one specific path that I almost missed other opportunities because I wasn't willing to be flexible.
That's so easy to do.
It's a tough lesson, but definitely one worth learning.
For sure.
And speaking of lessons, Trump's take on hard work and luck really got me thinking.
Oh, yeah. What did he say about that?
He's got this famous line, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Classic.
And he even tells this story about almost going bankrupt in the 90s, but he clawed his way back because he just wouldn't give up.
Wow.
It's a pretty incredible story.
It is, but that anecdote is a perfect example of what psychologists call illusory correlation.
Okay, what's that?
Basically, we tend to connect hard work and positive outcomes, even if it's just a coincidence.
Interesting.
But think about what's actually happening when you work hard.
Yeah,
You're putting yourself out there more. You're getting better at what you do.
right.
You're becoming the kind of person who's ready to grab a lucky break when it comes along.
So it's not so much about luck being this magical force, but more about putting yourself in the right place at the right time because you put in the effort.
Exactly. And that can be so empowering.
It really can.
It shifts the focus from chance to action.
Right.
It suggests that we have more control over our destinies than we might think.
I like that.
What do you think? Do you believe in luck, or do you think we create our own fortunes?
That's a tough one,
It is, isn't it?
I think.
One thing that really stuck out to me in Trump's speech is how much he talks about loving what you do.
Yeah, he's big on that.
He says passion is what keeps you going when things get rough.
It's interesting, though, right? We always hear that, follow your passion. But is it really that important for success?
Yeah, it's a good question.
What about people who find fulfillment in other parts of their life, like their family, hobbies, things like that?
Right.
Can they not be successful in their careers, even if their job isn't their main passion?
That's something to think about, for sure.
It is.
Passion can definitely give you that extra drive, that resilience, but it's not the only way to be successful.
I see what you mean.
Some people really thrive on structure and stability.
Yeah.
They find meaning in the process, in the contribution they're making,
Right.
even if the work itself isn't their burning passion.
Makes sense. It's about recognizing there are different ways to be motivated.
Exactly.
And to be fair to Trump, he does say it's better to do something you at least, like even if it pays less.
Yeah.
He seems to get that finding your dream job isn't always realistic, but finding some level of enjoyment in what you do is key.
I agree with that.
What about you? Does your work energize you or totally drain you?
Most days it's a good mix, I'd say.
What would it take to shift that balance for you?
That's a question we should all ask ourselves every now and then.
Definitely.
Are we really present and engaged, or are we just going through the motions?
It's easy to fall into that trap.
It is, but sometimes just a small change in perspective or how we approach things can make a big difference.
Totally agree.
And speaking of changes in perspective, get ready for this because Trump's take on handling pressure is pretty intense.
Oh, yeah.
He basically says it's an instinct, not something you learn.
So you either have it or you don't.
Pretty much. He says if you can't handle it, you're not cut out for entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
It is, and I think it's important to dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah.
Resilience is super important for entrepreneurs, but saying it's all about your genes can be misleading and even discouraging.
I can see how.
The ability to deal with stress can totally be developed and strengthened.
Oh.
There are strategies and practices that can help.
So it's not just about having a tough personality, but about learning how to navigate those high-pressure situations.
Exactly. We can learn to manage our emotions, prioritize tasks, and ask for help when we need it.
That makes sense.
And we can't forget about self-care.
Oh, for sure.
Knowing when to step back and recharge, especially when things are crazy.
It's like athletes needing rest to perform their best.
Right, exactly.
You know, even Trump touches on this in his own way.
Really?
He says to remember what really matters, like your faith, your family, things that ground you.
Oh, that's good.
He warns that being too focused on success can lead to burnout and even breakdowns.
Makes sense.
It's like he's saying, find your anchors, the things that give you perspective and meaning beyond the ups and downs of business.
That's so important, having a life outside of work, something to balance things out.
Definitely.
And realizing that success isn't just about achievements, it's also about inner peace and well-being.
It really makes you think about what success even means.
Right. It's not just about money or awards, it's about feeling fulfilled and living your values.
Absolutely. And speaking of values, this is where Trump's speech gets really interesting.
How so?
Mr. Never Give Up actually talks about the importance of knowing when to get out.
Wow, that's unexpected.
I know, right? It seems like a total contradiction,
It does.
but it's actually super insightful.
I'm curious to hear more.
He talks about recognizing when something has run its course, when being persistent isn't smart anymore. Like when you're just throwing good money after bad.
That's a hard call to make.
It is, especially when you've put your heart and soul into something.
Yeah, you're emotionally invested.
He doesn't sugarcoat it either. He talks about entrepreneurship being a high-stakes game.
Oh, yeah.
You risk your money, your health, even your family's well-being.
It's a lot to put on the line.
It is. And it goes back to what he said about pressure.
Right.
Can you make smart decisions even when you're facing potential losses?
Especially when your ego is bruised.
Exactly. That kind of detachment isn't easy.
No, but it's crucial for success in the long run.
He also talks about trusting your gut,
Okay.
having the courage to go against what everyone else is telling you.
That takes a lot of confidence.
It does.
And a strong vision.
Yeah, he uses examples like Microsoft and Google.
Oh, companies that went against the grain and made it big.
Exactly. But he also warns that it's not for everyone.
Right, you have to be able to handle the risks.
And the uncertainty.
Yeah, because charting your own course is never easy.
He then circles back to passion again.
Okay.
He says, if you're only doing it for the money, it's probably not going to work.
That makes sense.
He even shares a story about advising a friend to leave a super lucrative business,
Really?
to pursue something he was truly passionate about, even if it didn't pay as much.
Wow, that's a big leap of faith.
It is, and it gets to the heart of what motivates us.
Intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards.
Right, money is important, but it's not always enough to keep you going in the long run.
Especially if you're not passionate about what you're doing.
Exactly. When you love what you do, the work itself becomes the reward.
That's a great way to put it.
He gives this very relatable example
Okay, I like relatable examples.
about someone with a stable job, a steady paycheck, a comfortable life.
Right, the picture of security.
They might not be living in a mansion, but they have security.
And a lot of people value that.
He says the hardest thing is leaving that comfort behind.
To take a chance on entrepreneurship.
It's a huge risk.
It is, and it shows there are different definitions of success.
For sure.
For some, it's building an empire. For others, it's stability and contentment.
It all depends on what matters to you.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong answer.
One thing that really hit home for me was when he said, I've always believed in positive thinking. At the same time, I don't want to mislead. I also believe in aspiring in terms of what you're doing, aspiring to protect against the downside.
So be optimistic, but be prepared for things to go wrong.
Exactly. That's a pretty balanced approach.
It is. It's not about ignoring potential problems or pretending everything will be perfect.
Yeah.
It's about having a positive mindset while also acknowledging and preparing for risks.
Like a pre-mortem for your business.
Exactly. You imagine the worst case scenario and figure out how you'd handle it.
That's a great tool for planning and for building resilience.
It really is. By mentally preparing for challenges, you're less likely to be caught off guard.
And more likely to handle them well.
Right. And so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have perseverance, passion, pressure, knowing when to quit, even a bit of calculated optimism.
And we've explored it all through the lens of someone who, let's just say, isn't afraid to make waves.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to ruffle some feathers.
To put it mildly, but that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
I agree.
It's not just what he's saying, it's how he says it, you know?
Yeah, the whole persona.
It makes you really think critically, question your own ideas about success.
Absolutely, and what it takes to get there.
That's what's so great about hearing different perspectives.
Yeah.
Even ones that maybe make us a little uncomfortable at first.
Right.
They force us to examine our own beliefs.
That's a good thing, though.
It is. It helps us understand the world better.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious what's sticking with you.
Oh, good question.
What's that one piece of wisdom you're taking away from this wild ride through Trump's advice?
Maybe it's that push to finally go after that passion project you've been putting off.
I like that.
Or maybe it's realizing that sometimes walking away is just as important as sticking with it.
That's a tough one, but so true.
It is. Or maybe it's about finding that balance between optimism and realism.
Right.
Believing in your vision, but also being ready for the bumps in the road.
Makes sense. Whatever it is, remember, success isn't a one-size-fits-all thing.
Definitely not.
It's a journey, and it's rarely a straight line.
So true. There will be detours, setbacks, moments of doubt.
But like we saw with Trump, those challenges can actually help you grow.
They can. They make you more resilient.
And help you figure out your true potential.
Exactly. So as you think about what we talked about today, really consider what success means to you.
Good point.
What are your must-haves? What are you willing to compromise on? What really matters in the end?
Those are the big questions.
They are. And most importantly, what's one small step you can take today?
Right, to start moving toward your vision.
Remember, even small steps, if you do them consistently, can lead to big progress over time.
That's encouraging.
It is. And one last thought before we go.
Okay, hit us with it.
Don't be afraid to be different, to challenge the status quo, to create your own path to success.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe you'll be the one inspiring others with your story someday.
That's what it's all about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We had a blast.
We did. Hope you found it insightful and got you thinking.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep chasing the success that truly matters to you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.